She's a titan of industry, now getting into the political arena. Linda McMahon is here to tell us why she wants Chris Dodd's job and why you should want her to have it. Also, Governor Rell gives us her state of the state and then proposes how we pay for it. State leaders are here to pick her budget plan apart. And then we have local leaders on hand to cut through the rhetoric and the numbers of the budget plan to say how they see it affecting their towns. Welcome to this week's edition of The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. We have an exciting show today filled with the biggest newsmakers of the moment, none more so than our first guest. She and her husband conquered the business and entertainment world, building the WWE into a phenomenal success. Now she is tackling politics as one in an ever-changing and growing list of those lined up to take Senator Chris Dodd's place in the U.S. Senate. We are happy to have with us Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, Linda McMahon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lori. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know you are very busy. I got this press release this week that said you had just attended your 267th meeting. That's crazy to me. But talk about why you are getting involved. You have a very extraordinarily successful career. You have a strong family. Some people might say, you know, why get involved in all this time-consuming stress?
I've had a wonderful career. I've been very successful in building a business, you know, from the ground up, from a small family entrepreneurial business to now a company, WWE, traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah. I've wanted to give back, and I'll tell you, I have been so absolutely concerned about the direction that the administration is taking our country. And, you know, we see spiraling costs, increased debt, increased taxes. And I am afraid that the American dream, which I've had the privilege to live, will not be there for my children and my grandchildren. And last week we just had our 5th grandchild, and I want to make sure that the American dream is alive and well for them.
Yeah, and you talk about that American dream, and I know that you mention often about how you and your husband were bankrupt. Your house, I believe, was auctioned, and you climbed out of that. Are there any practical lessons, you know, maybe more than keep your head up, that you can give to people, families today who are in fear of losing their homes? Are there any practical lessons about financial health or, you know, your personal health that you can share with them?
Sure, but first of all, let me tell you a little story about the day that we went to bankruptcy hearing in Hartford. I was going to meet Vince there because he was out of town. I go down to get in the car, flat tire. So I call a towing truck to come out of Hartford. By the time the truck gets there, then we don't have time to change the tire. And I said, could you please give me a ride into Hartford? Huh. He agreed. I get in this tow truck, I mean, you know, the hook hanging off the back, the whole thing. We pull up in front of the courthouse. Vince comes down, and I climb down out of a tow truck, 7 months pregnant with our daughter,
oh my gosh,
file folders under my arm, and Vince says, well, all you need now is to be barefoot to complete this picture. So it was we chuckle about that today, right, but it was a time of uncertainty for us, and sure. I think, you know, I tell that story so that mothers who are listening can understand that I know what it's like to have the uncertainty of that future, you know, for their children, and to not know if they're going to have a job. Right. Women in business also, who are looking, you know, at is their business going to close? Are they going to have to, you know, take other measures even to survive? So we did climb back from that. Yeah. We were not defeated. We were bruised. We were embarrassed. But that is the other reason, because we did have that opportunity in this country, and I want to make sure we preserve that.
Okay, let's talk about, you know, the big news lately has been, of course, the Scott Brown victory. He was sworn in this week. What are you taking from that victory as you look forward to this race?
I believe that the people in Connecticut, just like they did in Massachusetts, are going to have a referendum on Washington politics this coming November. What the vote in Massachusetts showed is that our country is pushing back. Our citizens don't want the same old politics. They want new people. They want fresh faces. They want new blood, you know, to be in Washington so that politics can change. If we send the same people to Washington, we're going to get the same politics, and they want things to be different. They're concerned about their economy. They're concerned about the direction the country's taking. They want smaller government, less interference of government in their lives. I think that's what you'll see in November in Connecticut as well.
A lot of people say that the Scott Brown victory was also a referendum on the health care reform bill. What are your concerns about the health care reform bill? Like, for me, you know, I mean, I want more people to have health care. Why should I consider this bill carefully before supporting it?
The healthcare, healthcare reform is something we all want to see in this country. I don't think there's any argument that we want healthcare reform. But the way this healthcare reform bill was done over a compact period of time, this affects a sixth of our economy. We should take time to do it right. It was done behind closed doors with backroom deals. I do believe that it's going to cost much more than's been predicted. I don't think it's going to be budget, deficit neutral. And it's going to cost a lot of money, has the potential to come in between doctors and patients. It's not the right bill. We need to carefully consider it with a bipartisan effort out of the political arena.
You talked about a bipartisan effort. Do you think that you will be able to reach across the aisle or even, stand up to your other party members and say, this is what I think is right?
As a former CEO of a company that's now traded on the New York Stock Exchange, a CEO has to have leadership and managerial skills, have to be able to bring people to the table, have to fight hard to drive consensus, but when you can't work hard to get your point across. I think I have those skills to bring people to the table, to negotiate hard, to know when to have consensus and know when not to.
Yeah, talking about your former job as a CEO of the WWE, I have to say I've never seen an event. I don't know really much about it other than what I see in the news or on TV. And I think it ranges from at best people thinking it's maybe silly to at worst I know there have been accusations that the industry perhaps turns a blind eye to steroid abuse and use. What should I know about the WWE? I mean, should I check it out? What do you think?
You absolutely should check it out. WWE is a wonderful company for which I am very proud. The content that's produced on WWE is episodic television. It's a soap opera that's written every week, and I think you can appreciate the fact that if you are on 52 weeks a year with no reruns, no repeats, and you write those shows every week, and you have those performers that are involved in the show, the storylines take a lot of different twists and turns to keep that audience connected. 16 million people a week in this country view WWE programming, and it's the longest running weekly episodic show on television, even longer than last year Gunsmoke. It's got a lot of fun, a lot of entertainment, and we're very proud of the reach that WWE programs have into our country, which allowed WWE to foster programs like Get Real, Respect, Education, Achievement, Leadership, Smack Down Your Vote. Vince McMahon, the chairman of the company, takes the performers of WWE to Iraq or Afghanistan. This was the 7th trip this year. Wow. So a lot of good socially proactive programs from WWE. And
it's been obviously very lucrative for you, very successful, and you've spent quite a lot of money so far. Is it up to $6 million on this race at this point?
I think that's about right, $6 million.
Yeah, I mean, do you agree with the Supreme Court's recent campaign finance ruling that basically opens up the donations for corporations? I mean, would mean maybe perhaps you would have to spend less of your own money.
Well, I'm always pleased to see when there is support for the First Amendment, and I really think that's what this ruling was about. It was about First Amendment rights. There'll be a lot more information in the marketplace. I believe that our voters will need to be discerning and look at the information available, but I don't think we can ever be afraid of putting more information into the marketplace. So, I'll welcome that, but the voters will have to look at it and make the decisions on their own.
And one final question, we're running out of time here. Has this race, do you think, become more difficult for you now that Senator Dodd is not a target?
I, from the beginning, did not believe Chris Dodd would be in this race because of his polling numbers. They didn't change, they didn't move. There was certainly a mood in this state that was not favorable toward Chris Dodd, and I thought it would be Attorney General Blumenthal. He was the presumptive Democratic candidate. So my race has really been about the policies in Washington. And I believe now that I'm facing, Senator Blumenthal, I think it's the same politics in a different suit. Right. Attorney General Blumenthal.
Right. Are those polling numbers a little daunting to you, though?
No, because I believe that as we continue with our campaign in the state, and as you mentioned, all those events I'm going to, I'm going around the state 7 or 8 events a day, shaking people's hands, looking in the eye, letting them get to know me. And I believe you'll see those numbers continue to change. All right.
Well, we wish you good luck. Thanks very much, Linda, for coming. It was great. Thanks again to Linda McMahon for sharing some time and thoughts with us today. Coming up next, state leaders react to straight talk from the governor. She says it's time to stop fighting and start fixing Connecticut's financial crisis.